Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Legion, Season 1, Episode 2. It's called Chapter 2. Full spoilers for the episode, as always. We really liked Episode 1.
Yeah, a lot.
Really liked it. Yeah, it was great. This was very much... okay, last week was all the big stuff, and it was very confusing for a lot of people. This week we're going to try and make it a little bit more straightforward for everyone.
Yeah, it's like let's slow it down and actually explain some stuff.
Yeah, to the point where we had Sid kind of explain her side of what happened, and we see her sort of
Yeah.
like her and his body turn into her in the car with the
So we
rest of
were
them.
right. It was the actual bodies that swapped.
Yeah, which is weird.
Yeah, not because we were a little confused about that last week because we were talking about it.
Well, we were pretty sure we were right that that had happened because it had to have been, but it was just weird. Like that's why it was confusing in the first place, is because typically
Yeah.
we wouldn't have expected that. We'd have expected the minds to swap back.
Yeah,
But in this case, the bodies snapped to each location. Uh, Again, assuming that we're taking it at face value, which with this show, I'm not sure we can trust entirely. Because one of the big sort of theories I was seeing online, one that we didn't really talk about, was that Sid was just another personality in David's head.
Mm.
With that in mind, this episode, I was noticing some things that maybe lend that to being a possibility. She never interacts with any other character but David.
but she is mentioned by other characters,
Not by name.
not by name, but they do mention. Well, like his girlfriend, don't they?
Yeah, one person says that.
Yeah,
But that
Yeah.
could mean something else. That could mean someone else.
it could.
And
could.
because of this, I actually went back and watched the last scene from the first episode because I was curious if anyone speaks to her in that scene. Because, obviously, I mean, this might all mean nothing if it happened last week. And I
Yeah.
just didn't remember it. She does say something. She says,
She gives the order to move out, does she not?
I don't know if she does that, but because I looked at the end of the episode, like the very end.
Right. Okay. I'm thinking
Well,
just before that part.
No, when they're on the shore and they're just about to go on the
Right.
boat. She says to David, "This is Miss Bird,"
Yeah.
and says, "And Miss Bird, this is David," or whatever the phrasing was. And Miss Bird kind of looks her way, but never says anything to her. She mostly just keeps her glance on David.
Mm.
So I don't know. I think
I'd have to check it myself because I thought, when they break into the pool to get him, I thought she was the one who gave the order to move out, but maybe I'm misremembering.
you may be right, but even if you are right, then we get into like, well, when
Could
she
they
gives
have
an
just-
order, is it just him giving the order because it's
Yeah,
Annie's head?
or is it just that they would have moved out anyway?
Yeah. There's lots of ways you could.
Yeah.
It,
There are.
It's this thing where part of me thinks they're intentionally not having her, because it felt very in this episode. It was really stand out to me the way that he kept having scenes with everyone but her. The one time she was there with everyone else was in the glass room when they first did the memory thing.
Yeah.
But she was just kind of standing in the corner. She didn't go into the dreams with them.
No.
She was just there in the corner, and it was that was the scene that I really noticed it, because at the end of that scene when he sort of he snaps out of it, and he's kind of freaking out a little bit, and she comes over to help him. None of the other ones look at her. None of the other characters kind of acknowledge her existence.
It's you're right, they don't, but you can also explain that away by saying no, they're giving her the space to calm him down. It
Absolutely.
works both ways, doesn't it?
It wouldn't surprise me if this was an intentional red herring, like because I think Noah Hawley trusts the audience enough to think that we'd probably be looking for that twist.
Yeah, it's kind of the. I mean, it's not like it's not been done recently in the past few years on TV in multiple places anyway.
But at the same time, I'm not going to rule it out at all,
No.
because I think the possibility is definitely there. There's nothing that outright says no, she has to be real. Because
not.
after that scene, every scene she has, it's just him and her. She's never with any of the other characters.
Yeah.
And as we said, when she is kind of referenced, it's not by name, it's your girlfriend, which could be a joke for. He could be talking about Melanie. He could just be cracking a little joke, just referring to
It
her as
could.
that.
It could.
Yeah.
The only thing that it then plays up the whole the breakout of last episode, from the hospital.
Yeah, from her perspective, which, again, it adds this weird element, but
Yeah.
I mean, how many things in certain shows recently, two shows in particular,
Yeah. No, we're not going to say which ones,
Yeah.
just in case you haven't seen them. We don't want to ruin anything.
especially last year, there was one where there was a theory, and we kept sort of just debunking it for reasons, and then by the end of the season, it was like, no, every single thing had a reason for X, Y, and Z
Yeah.
being like that. So
Yeah.
I'm not ready to disprove it.
No, me either. And it's very possible, but at the same time, I'm not completely committing to it as definite either.
Oh no, 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 I'm not. I'm saying that the the reasons for people thinking it are there. That said, there was people even had theories that every single character that saved him was in his head. I don't think that's real for a second. Everything in this episode told me no, everyone else is a character.
Yeah, and also even before that, it would have felt cheap to fake out everyone to me.
Well, it depends what they did with the rest of the season. I feel like that's a weird thing to say. Based on one episode, you'd say, "Oh, this twist will feel cheap." I don't know.
I don't know. It would just to me if you've got a whole cast and you're
No,
going to fake out all of them.
it would now, given this episode, because we've actually spent time with them all. But in the first episode, when we only seen small amounts of them, nah.
Fair enough.
But the way everything plays in this one, everyone else is definitely. Well, I say everyone. The majority,
The
of them
majority,
are
at
definitely
least
real.
the core cast.
Yeah. Whereas Sid, I think, could just be someone in his head. But speaking of people being in his head, uh, Lemmy, who we definitely know is now at
Yeah, we saw Lenny a few times in
post
this.
hospital. Oh yeah, but we never saw her post hospital. We saw her in flashbacks. We saw
We
her in
did.
memories. I shouldn't call them flashbacks. I should outlaw that word on this show because they work differently. They're not just cuts
Yeah,
to the past. They're actually interactive things.
for the most part.
Yeah, they're memories, and it seems that we didn't. Because I don't think it was knowledge last week that he knew her before they went into the hospital.
It wasn't. I would have feel like I'd have remembered that.
Because when she first showed up, I was thinking, are his memories like mixing and doing weird things?
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. I was like, is he bringing something in?
But then when it got to the scene, then they're in the apartment and they're getting high or whatever, and they pause it and they're talking about it. I'm like, oh no, that just seems to be what happened. There's no confusion about
Yeah,
this.
yeah. Up to that, I was thinking maybe he brought her in with him. You know, like because obviously she's in his mind. I thought maybe he'd brought her into the memories in that way.
No, yeah, that's what I mean by mixing
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
whatever, intentional or not. Probably not. He doesn't seem to have much control over anything at this point.
He really doesn't.
But yeah, so I like that it keeps this idea going. Obviously, it's a much more conventional episode, but it still plays with this idea that we're going to keep getting into his memories, and that's going to be a running theme throughout the show. And one of the big things I want to talk about, because obviously in the comics he's Xavier's son, and that's a big thing. And in this episode, he does talk about his dad. He says his dad was an astronomer. There's scenes with his dad, but his dad's face is like in silhouette, and no matter what he does, he can't see his dad, which was really making my mind spinning because I was thinking, what if his memories already been messed with? What if Xavier has already like erased himself from his memory?
I'm convinced that's not his dad because he said he died last year.
Well, he did, yeah. But what I'm suggesting is that Xavier actually, it's all fake.
Right.
Xavier
Yeah.
went into his head, and because we know, I mean, at least we know from the comics that Xavier can do this. He can go into people's minds and take things away to either make them feel better, take bad memories away, stuff like that. It was just the way that he couldn't see him, no matter what he did.
Yeah, and after he'd been told he should be able to.
Yeah, it just made me feel like, especially since there was like some time jumps as well. I remember in the memory in the psychiatrist's office,
Yeah, the
where he's like,
glitch.
there's like a flash and like there's some time missing here. He's like, even if you weren't paying attention, that should still be here. Like we should still be able to see it.
Yeah, because he's like, "Oh, just make your mind blank, and I'll take us to it." And
Yeah.
he just can't. He ends up back in
can't.
that bedroom.
And it's almost like if Xavier has messed with his mind, or maybe someone else. I'm assuming Xavier. I'm assuming this is it because it's messing with the memory of his dad. I'm thinking Xavier, for some reason, has to keep him safe, to keep him whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
Has
and
done this.
I think it's very intentional that maybe it is that because he does go back to the bedroom where we see the dad the most.
Yeah.
When he looks for that missing memory, that's where he ends up back there, and I don't think that's a coincidence.
No. And the fake dad or the dad he can't see is like telling him this really awful story about killing people.
Yeah,
book.
decapitating people.
Yeah. Which is maybe why, if it wasn't Xavier, it was someone with more nefarious intentions.
Yeah, possibly.
Doing something. I don't know, but maybe. But then his mind's such a maze and complex that I wonder if it's just mixing in like the yellow-eyed demon things, or if, you know.
Yeah, it feels like maybe he's jumbling things accidentally as well.
Which, by the way, Sid saw the yellow-eyed demon because she says when he went into his body,
Yeah.
she saw the demon, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. Which really opens it up because it's not just exclusive to his mind then.
No, it's there. Well, that is something we mentioned last week. It's not that Lemmy's like it's not like he's just imagining Lemmy in his head. Lemmy is actually in there. He absorbs people. So
Yeah.
I don't think he's absorbed the yellow-eyed demon per se, but I think whatever it is really in there.
Yeah, it's a personification of something or someone he has absorbed.
Maybe, but I don't know if it has someone he's absorbed. I think it's someone who's invading.
Ah, could be, yeah.
I don't necessarily think it's. I mean, it might be, but it might just be some evil force, whatever it is,
Yeah.
person, mutant, supernatural entity, is
Yeah, but it's
forcing
definitely
Lily in.
not something just in his mind.
Yeah,
That
it's not
proves that.
fake. Yeah, it's not fake.
Unless
It's
Sid is all in his mind as well anyway, so it's all the same thing.
yeah, and even this episode, it's not as confusing as last week, but it did sort of jump around a little bit. I got the feeling
Yeah.
all the MRI scenes were after all of the brain or the memory scanning sort of adventures.
Yeah, that's what I got as well.
Yeah, it felt like because he says, "Oh, because there's bits of your memory missing, we're trying to look for them." And the first scene of that was like in the middle, and I thought, "Oh, I think these are all set after. I think they're playing with the structure just
Yeah,
a little
and
bit
obviously
still."
where it ends with the MRI stuff.
Yeah, it feels like that was the end. So obviously at the end of the MRI scene, he gets emotional and he causes the whole machine to, I don't want to say teleport, but fly outside into the
Yeah.
forest, and everyone's like, "Oh, wait a minute, why is the MRI machine out here?"
It's a pretty good response, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be wondering it myself. But the reason why he gets emotional, of course, and this is actually how the episode starts, is Melanie, at least the telepathy, kind of similar to when Superman's mum teaches him how to handle his super hearing.
Yeah.
But we get this like great visualization of him turning down the giant volume knob on an amp.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool visual. But he hears his sister's voice from afar, from like, which shows you how powerful he is, because it's not like she's nearby. She's
Yeah. I just say also when he's hearing all those voices, the effect of it sounds very similar to how it did in the early X-Men films. Just it was a very similar effect of all the quiet, sped up voices.
I wonder. I wonder if that's just because they wanted the same effect rather than they wanted to connect it.
Yeah, yeah.
that, you know?
It could be that. It could be just an Easter
Because I
egg,
feel
you know.
like if there's too many voices and you can't control them, I'd probably go with lots of whispers like that kind of thing.
Yeah, it kind of seems obvious, but I just thought it was very, very similar of those.
But he hears his sister, and his sister is at the Clockwork was the name of the
Yes.
hospital, and the receptionist is like, no, David's ever been here, which actually ties up neatly to because one of the reasons why we thought, oh, maybe Sid was never actually there, because that was one of the things this answered actually, assuming she's not part of his head, right? One of the things this answered is it kind of confirmed that she was actually there. It wasn't just in the memories like we kind of speculated last week. We said, oh, maybe if she can insert herself into that memory, which presumably it was Potomi.
Potomi.
It's going to take me a while to remember that name. It's a really weird name. I actually had to go back and check the pronunciation of it because I read it and went, wait a minute, how do you pronounce that? And I had to go back and check because it's just PT at the start.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she mentions they were there, and it was actually after they got her out that that was the first time she interacted with these people, because we thought maybe she was just there at all to make contact with him, but it seems not. She ended up there by chance, and then it was when they accidentally got her because it was his body, yada yada yada.
That's when they went looking for him.
Yeah, that's when they went back and looked for him. Presumably after a little time gap, because she said she was there for a little bit doing the lessons.
Yeah, I mean, we saw like the memory of last week. We saw him running away. You know, where she comes up to him in the memory,
There's a
where,
little bit of
where
time.
he gets taken.
Yeah.
There's a bit of time between that for sure, because he goes to his sisters and
Yeah, at least like a few days to a week, if not a bit more.
yeah.
So that at least kind of confirmed that part of it, and that's fine. Again, assuming that she's real and not just part of his head.
I like that while we were there, we saw him rebuilding and repainting all the stuff.
Yeah, that was a really nice touch, just in the background of the scene in the hospital, and they're denying that she's there. Which again, what I was saying is it ties in nicely to that scene from last week, because when David tried to phone and ask about Sid, they claimed that Sid was never there. So clearly, there's some sort of cover-up conspiracy nonsense going on. But the villain, who we now know is called the Eye, which we were actually discussing before we started. I think this is a really cool name. Connor thinks it's weird, but
I don't think it's bad. I just thought, it's gonna have to grow on me.
I like it. But you see him just enter the scene at the end, and he sort of like he looks happy that he's found David's sister, and he's like, oh dear,
Yeah.
oh bad. So David, and what I like is David actually makes a decision to leave, and like a montage of those sort of whispers. You just sort of hear fragments of the conversations. You don't hear like a full scene of him deciding, and he's leaving. And that's when Sid goes to the elevator and convinces them that she's bait, so they won't kill her. Wait until you're not ready to take people on. You're not going to control your powers yet. You have to hone them and learn your skills. So
Yeah. It's another one of those, that bit there that convinces you either way of her being real or not. Because it's like, oh, if she is real, then it's, as a friend, like, come on, have some common sense. And if she's not real, it's, right, come on, you know, you're telling yourself almost.
Talking to himself, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it works both ways, that scene. Even the end, because I thought she said up or whatever in the elevator, and I thought she was telling him to press the button because she couldn't. I was like, oh. But then it was just voice activated, so fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he stays, and that's that. So in the actual ending of the episode, we see that the eye does indeed have his sister, and he's got like a fish tank with these little
eel things.
Yeah, looking things. Ugh.
Yeah, but it proves that his vision was accurate because that is undistorted from his point of view, as far as we know.
Well, I wouldn't call it a vision.
All right, not vision, but
I would say
experience.
I would say he heard her voice, he went looking for her, and then he was cyclically linked to her or someone else in the scene. So it wasn't a vision per se, he was witnessing the actual event as well.
Yeah, what I mean is that definitely did happen.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't he didn't filter and distort that.
Well, that's the way we know for sure, is if he's not a part of the scene and we get a scene with other people, we know for sure, right?
That's happened.
Which again, Sydney, with the exception of her telling her side of the story, which is from her point of view, we've never seen her in a scene without David.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not entirely true. Oh no, that is true, because it was him and her body. I was saying, well, last week when her and the doctor were like wandering the halls after the event, but no, that was him. So yeah, we never had a scene with just her, except when she was telling the story of her own flashback.
Yeah, which is the one thing that really throws the spanner in the wrench of who was, if she's real or not, because how can both of those things have happened? Unless there's some time differentials at play.
Yeah, there's obviously some weird things going on. Certainly Melanie and Potomi and Carrie and Carrie, or Carrie and Carrie. That was a running joke. The scientist I was doing the MRI thing has almost the identical name to the girl who works with Potomi. Aye. I second guessed if it was the T or the P that came first there. That's what that second word was.
I was wondering what was going on there.
Yeah, aye. But yeah, so they don't seem to have met David before this rescue, which would imply that the stuff with Sid really did happen. But then maybe it didn't, because I've never really spoken about it. I know,
but it's when we see in her memories, we see.
Yeah, but that's her telling the story. That's not reliable.
It's not reliable, but how Eleni is dead, and she was dead when David in Sid's body found her.
Yeah, well, I remember I speculated about this last week. It was just they never swap bodies. He just went berserk, and that's why he's like created this weird memory of swapping bodies.
Right, so you think he's created one of these sets of memories.
Essentially, I was just speculating last week that instead of actually swapping bodies, that if she is also part of him, it was just like a mechanism because he freaked out for whatever reason. The Yellow Demon was coming, panicking, and he caused the event himself. And this is his like coping mechanism, is kind of blaming her. But if we're taking it at face value, it wasn't him; it was her.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is everything's unreliable. So nothing you're saying to me is disproving it either.
No, I'm not saying it's disproving. I'm saying it just makes me think, because it means one of these memories is a false construct. They can't both have happened the way we've seen them.
How can't they both have happened?
Because they happen concurrently.
What two memories are?
Right, I'm talking about
if she's not a part of his head, right, and they did swap bodies, what memories can't be real?
When she talks about the flashback, right, and she tells her side of the story, that is happening while we were with David in Sid's body last week. He was wandering through the corridors, and he was, going through in the mirror and looking at his hands.
Uh-huh.
Those two things are happening simultaneously, are they not?
Which part of her telling the backstory or the flashback was the same time as that?
When she was in his body.
Well, yeah,
Well,
but not that exact same time. What part are you saying disproves it though?
are they not the exact same time? Because we're with David in.
Yeah, we were
from the
with
moment-
David. We were with David in her body for a lot longer, though. What timeline in that part
No,
are you
but
saying it's
that's
the
what I
same
mean.
time?
So when as soon as they swap bodies, we follow David in Sid's body, right, to
Uh-huh.
with the doctor, and then we follow him out into the corridor while they explore. At what point in there does the stuff in David's body take place if they are the same person? Because we follow it pretty linearly at that point.
I'm not talking about that though. I'm talking about if they did swap bodies.
Yeah, I'm saying that if they are the same person, how did that happen? Like,
That's not what I was arguing. You said these two things couldn't have happened, and I said they could have if they swapped bodies.
I said if they couldn't have happened if they were the same person.
You didn't say that. You didn't make that clear.
Oh, right. I thought that's what we were on. Sorry.
Jesus Christ.
I thought that's what we were on the whole time. I thought that's what brought us on to this.
Jesus Christ. No, you're right. If they didn't swap bodies and they are the same person, then there's some mangling here in his memory to make it work. It doesn't quite add
there's
up.
got to be another glitch, a time jump somewhere.
A time jump, or it was kind of both. Like,
Because it didn't really cut away that much once the bodies swapped. I don't recall it cutting away from David in Sid's body that much.
unless if it was really David, like the whole thing's actually David, then it was David that was going to leave. He gets scared about leaving, and the doctor did take him to another room, and then he went to go check, and then David came out. Like, because there was nothing in this episode, like her and his body, there was nothing. Like, after the moment where they touched, they kissed, and everything happened. I mean, all she described was like the bang and the flash or whatever she said.
Yeah.
There was no like actual what was she doing right after that.
No, that's true. We
But
got that kind of distorted filter.
It went straight. The next proper thing we seen was her getting out of the car and being in the car with the others.
Yeah. That's true.
So
I'm just trying to explore this idea of whether or not she could be real.
So there's not a super amount in there that actually couldn't coexist together, except for her actually being in the car with them.
Yeah, it's more just the action of she did kill Lenny. Lenny got put in the wall.
That could easily just been David though.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, would we not have seen that because we followed it pretty linearly? Or would it not, either he'd had to have changed that memory.
No. If they are the same person, if it's a lie, then everything we've seen last week with David in her body cannot be trusted.
Yeah.
That's like been covered up. So we wouldn't have seen it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is it just fake memories essentially?
Yeah. You keep saying we have seen this. I'm like, well, no, because it's unreliable.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is it just there would be fake memories? Is that the only way to cover it?
Well, that sounds cheap when you just say it's fake memories.
Well, I don't mean it to be cheap. I just mean that's essentially what it is.
I think it would work from a point of view of him covering everything up. But I don't necessarily think they are the same person. I'm saying it's a possibility, and people are really into this idea. I kind of hope it turns out they're not, because I think that would almost be the more interesting swerve. It's just that so far in this episode, I cannot deny that she was not interacting with anyone else.
No, you can't.
And it sticks out a little bit.
It does.
I think it's maybe because of other shows that have done similar things where I'm really noticing it, because I'm trained to catch that now.
Like these last few years, it has been like, oh, okay, this is a thing that people are doing, which makes me think more that it is going to be a swerve, because Noah Hawley knows that that's the trend, and he knows that people are looking for this. So it's amusing to him to play into it.
Yeah, maybe. I was really... But it's saying, we spoke about this last week again, with that moment at the end when he's like, I don't know if this is real. You need, like, are you real? Is this real? And she does that really sweet moment. She's like, I'm real. I'm here. This is real. And it's a really sweet moment where you actually kind of feel a connection, and that makes me hope it's real. But then, is that just me in David's head, like, buying into the fantasy to get me through it?
Yeah, it's much more gut-wrenching if it's not real, isn't it?
Yeah. So it works either way. I think there's dramatic, impact from it either way.
It does.
But
It makes me question Melanie and Petoni. You know, they came to pick her up from the hospital, or him up from the hospital, but they got her, and then the bodies swapped. Obviously, we've only heard about that from her perspective, but they must have picked someone up. And if it was David, what happened then? How did things get so?
Maybe they didn't pick someone up though. Maybe they just arrived and he was already gone, and they were like, "Where's he went?" Because he went out.
Okay.
He went out with the case earlier that we seen. Because that's what we followed him doing.
Yeah, yeah, that's possible.
But I don't know. This might not even be a thing. We might find out that no, she is real and she isn't. But then again, I hate even using that word. This is the weird thing about this show, is that Lemmy's still real. She's in his head, but she's still real.
Yeah,
And
that's the confusion. There's two types of this now, isn't there? There's real world real, there's in his head real, and then there's in his head not real.
Yeah, this is going to get nice and confusing as we go on. As for this episode, I think it obviously wasn't as a show stealer as last week's was. Last week was a fantastic premiere. This week was very much a bit slower. Let's build the blocks up, make sure it's a little easier to digest for everyone. But it sets up this idea that he's not ready. He has to learn to hone his powers, and I'm still liking the whole memory sort of.
Yeah, I really like this. Let's say it wasn't a show stealer. There was no big flashy scene like at the end of last week, but I think it did a really good job of making sure everyone was up to speed, if they weren't already. And I'm sure there were people who were confused by the previous episode.
I think this one clears a lot of stuff up because we spent a lot of time last week analysing it, and I think we figured it all out as far as the show wants us to have it figured out at this point. Yeah. But I think we did take a bit of time talking about it.
Took us a while to get there, didn't it?
Yeah. So thank for everyone else, and if you were still a little bit iffy, this episode did its best to say, no, this is what happened. Give it from her perspective, and it really cleared up that even if they did actually swap bodies, it really cleared up that no, their bodies. It was them switching, and she was in the car with them then. And because if it is her power and she is real, and it's her power that does this, that's why she understood it. So when she appeared, she was like, "Surprise!"
Yeah,
that's it. That is the one thing I really want them to actually flat out confirm that though. I want her to talk about her power and just have her tell him like what it was like the first time it happened and stuff like that. How did she discover her power? I'm sure we'll get that at some point, but I'm curious to hear about it.
Yeah, it's very intriguing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an interesting power. So, no, a solid second episode. Obviously not as amazing as the first, but it was going to be hard to.
I do think it was important that this was the second episode, though, and not any further in. Because anyone who was kind of so-so on the first one, who enjoyed the spectacle but wanted a bit more, straightforwardness.
Oh, yeah, I think it was definitely more conventional, which is both a positive and a negative, depending on how much you loved the first episode. But I think they can't have every episode be the main.
Yeah, it'd be too hard for most people to follow.
Yeah, so no, solid second episode. That's Legion episode 2. Let us know what you thought of it in the comments below. Where do you stand? Is Sid real? Is she in his head? Is someone he's already absorbed? Let us know. I was surprised there was no present day Lemmy, like popping up and talking to him.
Yeah, maybe he can only have one appear at a time. This is Lenny or Sid.
Which leads into the Sid's in his head. I don't know if it's that. I wonder if it was just a conscious choice not to overdo it with her.
Could be.
Because they don't want it to suddenly feel like Dexter or his dead dad's talking to him every single episode about...
That, or if you put in the idea, if you remind people so much that there's these people in his head that they might over-notice Sid. They might draw the parallels just a bit too much, because no one would be addressing Lenny.
True. Well, there you go. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. Helps us out a lot. Thank you very much for watching. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz. Individual Twitters on the screen. And we'll see you next time.